What if I told you that one of the greatest secrets in human history has been buried for centuries, hidden from the world, and waiting to be unearthed? Imagine a truth so powerful that it could shatter everything you think you know about the past and our connection to the divine. But here's the mystery. This knowledge was deliberately suppressed, locked away by those who feared its revelation. Why? What would happen if such a story were told? Would it challenge the foundations of faith, history, and even the very fabric of civilization? For thousands of years, this secret remained buried in the sands of time. In caves and ruins, forgotten scrolls lay untouched, holding the key to a world of giants, fallen angels, and a forbidden history that's been erased from mainstream narratives. The Book of Giants, a mysterious and cryptic text, holds a truth that could rewrite the biblical history we know, if only it were allowed to be seen. It begins with the Nephilim, the giants of ancient lore. But who were these giants? How did they come to be, and why were they cast out of history? What did they know that threatened the very foundations of society? And who was responsible for burying their story? Imagine a time, long before our modern world, where giants roamed the earth, beings of great power, created through the union of angels and humans. These creatures, the Nephilim, were not mere myth, they were real, and their existence was more than just a footnote in religious texts. What if their story is far darker and more complex than we've ever been told? The Book of Giants offers a glimpse into this world, a world where angels descended from the heavens, teaching forbidden knowledge to humanity. But this wasn't just a gift, it was a curse. The Watchers, as they were called, defied divine command and shared their forbidden wisdom. They walked among humans, spreading their knowledge of the heavens, of sorcery, and of things mankind was never meant to know. But this knowledge came at a great price. The Nephilim grew in power, their very existence a blasphemous act against the natural order. The world, as it was, could not contain the consequences of such a union. Chaos followed. Floods, fires, destruction, all consequences of this transgression. And then a decision was made. The knowledge of the Nephilim, their origins and their downfall were erased. Why? What could be so dangerous about the truth of their existence? Why would it be hidden for so long, left to decay in forgotten caves, locked away from the world? What if I told you that the truth about the Nephilim was far more complex and dangerous than we've ever been led to believe? What if this ancient book, hidden for centuries, reveals the dark tale of the Watchers? Angels who defied God and walked among humans, their knowledge and power given freely to those who dared to receive it. This is not just a story about ancient giants. This is the story of a battle for knowledge, a battle fought not with swords, but with secrets. The Book of Giants wasn't just lost, it was suppressed, and the consequences of its suppression reach far beyond the ancient past. What if this forgotten text could change the course of our future? Imagine that everything you believe about the creation of the world, the rise of civilization, and the very nature of faith itself might be based on a lie. What if the story of the Nephilim was a tale too dangerous to be told, too dangerous for us to understand? What if this knowledge holds the key to unlocking truths that our ancestors tried to keep hidden forever? The truth about the Nephilim and the Book of Giants isn't just a relic of the past. It's a challenge to everything we think we know about the forces that shaped our world. What if the real reason this story was hidden wasn't because of divine judgment, but because it held a power that could unravel everything? And so I ask you, are you prepared to confront the truth that has been kept from us for so long? What if everything you've been taught was only half the story? As we uncover the secrets of the Book of Giants, we'll journey deep into a history so filled with mystery and moral conflict that it will challenge everything you think you know about the world, faith, and the forces that have shaped our reality. But before we begin this journey, one question remains. Are you ready to face the truth, no matter the cost? In the shadow of ancient temples, under the cold gaze of distant stars, a story began, a story that would be lost to time and swept into the dark corners of history. A time when the world was still young, and the lines between the divine and the earthly were blurred, where gods and men, angels and mortals, mingled in ways that defied imagination. The stage was set in a world teetering between the realms of myth and reality. In the centuries before the Bible was written, civilizations rose and fell, each with their own stories of gods, heroes, and titans. But there was one story, one hidden tale that would not be told. And it was this story that would give birth to the Book of Giants. It was a time of great upheaval, a time when angels descended from the heavens, bringing knowledge that was never meant for human hands. These beings, called the Watchers, defied the will of God, walking among mankind, teaching them secrets of the stars, the heavens, and the earth. In their rebellion, they gave birth to the Nephilim, giants who were both human and divine, children of angels and humans, whose existence would become a curse for all who knew of them. But who were these Watchers? And why did they defy divine command? Why did they feel the need to share their forbidden knowledge with humanity? The answers to these questions lie buried in the Book of Giants, a text that was lost to the world until the modern age. The Book of Giants doesn't just tell the story of the giants themselves. It paints a picture of a world where forbidden knowledge was not only shared but also twisted to suit the desires of men. The Nephilim were not just physical giants. They were symbols of the rebellion against divine order. Their existence represented the dangerous power of knowledge when it is used for selfish gain. But the story of the Nephilim didn't end with their birth. It was in their downfall that the true weight of the Book of Giants can be felt. For the giants, though powerful, were doomed from the start. The rebellion that brought them into being was not without consequence. As their power grew, so did their corruption. The Watchers, too, found themselves ensnared by the very knowledge they had shared, trapped by their defiance. In the ancient world, the story of the Nephilim was not widely known. The texts that mentioned them were few and far between, obscured by the passage of time. It wasn't until the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the mid-20th century that the Book of Giants was brought back into the light. Hidden among the caves near the Dead Sea, these scrolls had remained undisturbed for over 2,000 years. The discovery was nothing short of miraculous. Among the scrolls, scholars found fragments of what appeared to be an ancient text, one that spoke of giants, angels, and the fall of divine beings. The Book of Giants was not only real, but had survived the ravages of time, hidden away in these ancient caves. But why had this text been preserved while so many others had been lost or destroyed? What was it about the Book of Giants that made it so dangerous, so vital, that it had to be hidden from the world? The answer may lie in the political and religious landscape of the time, the Book of Giants. And its secrets would have been seen as a direct challenge to the established order. To many religious leaders, the existence of the Nephilim threatened the very foundations of their faith. If the giants were real, then everything they had been taught about the divine order of the world, the relationship between humans and gods, would have been upended. In the early days of Christianity, the spread of new religious ideas was met with fierce resistance from both political and religious authorities. Those who held power saw the Book of Giants as a threat to their control, an affront to the established beliefs that they worked tirelessly to protect. The Nephilim, with their origins in both heaven and earth, represented a hybrid reality, one that could not be easily dismissed or explained away. But the Book of Giants didn't just challenge religious authority. It also posed a moral dilemma. If the Watchers had shared forbidden knowledge with humanity, then they were both guilty and innocent. Their actions were a betrayal, yet they had also brought with them enlightenment, albeit a dangerous one. The giants they created were neither wholly human nor wholly divine. They were, in a sense, both. A representation of humanity's eternal struggle between the desire for knowledge and the need to remain humble before the divine. The story of the Nephilim and the Book of Giants also raises questions that are as relevant today as they were in ancient times. What is the true cost of knowledge? Is there a point at which humanity's thirst for understanding crosses the line and we begin to seek answers that we aren't ready to hear? The Book of Giants is a cautionary tale, one that warns of the dangers of seeking power beyond our means. Yet in its very mystery, the Book of Giants beckons to us. Its revelation calls to our curiosity, our thirst for truth, and our need to understand the hidden forces that shape our world. Why was this story suppressed? What truths does it hold that could transform our understanding of the universe? What was so dangerous about the giants and their creators that we have been kept in the dark for so long? The discovery of the Book of Giants was just the beginning. But even as it came to light, the questions surrounding its true meaning, its origins, its implications, remained unresolved. As we delve deeper into this forbidden text, we begin to understand why it was hidden, why it was suppressed, and why its revelation still resonates with us today. But the story doesn't end with the discovery of the text. What happens when we uncover the truth, when we face the knowledge that has been kept from us for so long? Are we prepared to deal with the consequences of its revelations? And what do we do with the power that comes with knowing the truth about the Nephilim? The history of the Book of Giants is not just one of discovery, but one of betrayal. From the very beginning, the sacred text was tied to secrets that certain individuals, groups, and even governments were determined to keep hidden. The ancient world, with all its gods, angels, and titans, was a place of power struggles where knowledge itself was as dangerous as the weapons of war. Those who held the knowledge of the Nephilim and the Watchers understood its potential to change everything. But with such power came fear. The fear of what might happen if the wrong hands were to grasp it. It wasn't long before the story of the Book of Giants began to unravel, just as the giants themselves did. The initial revelation of its existence was met with skepticism, with many believing it to be a mere myth or a hoax. But as the fragments of the text were pieced together, the truth became undeniable. The Book of Giants wasn't just a story, it was a record of real events, a testimony to a time when angels and giants walked the earth. The implications of this knowledge were profound, shaking the very foundations of religious and political institutions. And so, the first betrayal occurred. A scholar who had long been intrigued by the forbidden knowledge of the Nephilim came into possession of one of the fragments of the Book of Giants. His discovery should have been a moment of triumph, a breakthrough in understanding the hidden history of the world. But instead, it became a moment of fear of what the world would say, of how it would react, fear of the power this knowledge could give to those who understood it. And so the scholar chose silence. He could have shared the text with the world. He could have revealed the secrets of the Watchers and the Nephilim, but instead he hid it away, locking it in his private collection. His decision wasn't born out of a desire to protect the world from harm. No, it was driven by something far more personal. The scholar feared that if the Book of Giants were made public, it would destroy his reputation, his career, and his standing in the academic world. He feared the backlash that would come from challenging the long-held beliefs of the religious and political elites. In his silence, the scholar betrayed not only the Book of Giants, but the very pursuit of knowledge itself. He chose safety over truth, and in doing so he became complicit in the suppression of this forbidden text. His betrayal wasn't the last. Soon others in positions of power learned of the discovery, and they too made their choice. Some sought to destroy the text entirely, fearing the upheaval it could cause. Others sought to control the knowledge within it, using it for their gain. As the fragments of the Book of Giants were passed from hand to hand, they were hidden from public view. Some believed the Nephilim were dangerous, that their very existence would shake the world to its core. They feared what might happen if humanity learned the truth, that the divine and the human were intertwined in a way that threatened the established order. The Nephilim were not just giants. They were symbols of a reality in which the boundaries between gods and men had been blurred. To acknowledge their existence would mean acknowledging that humanity was far more than just mortal. For others, the betrayal was more personal. The Nephilim had not just been a threat to the established world order. They had been a threat to their faith. The idea that angels could rebel and walk among men was anathema to many religious leaders who viewed it as a direct challenge to the authority of God. The Watchers were supposed to be divine messengers, not rebellious beings who would dare to teach humanity secrets that were never meant to be known. The Book of Giants, with its revelations about the Nephilim and the Watchers, was seen as a dangerous challenge to the very foundation of faith. The betrayal was not just an academic one, it was a moral betrayal as well. The Book of Giants contained knowledge that in the wrong hands could be used to manipulate and control the masses. Those who had access to the text realized that it wasn't just a book, it was a weapon of knowledge, a weapon of power. Whoever controlled the Book of Giants controlled the very fabric of history, and those who sought to suppress it understood the dangers of allowing such knowledge to fall into the wrong hands. In the ancient world, this was not just about power, it was about control. Control over history, control over faith, and control over the truth. The Book of Giants represented a truth that many were unwilling to face. The giants, the Nephilim, and the Watchers. They were not just stories or myths, they were real, and that was a truth too dangerous for some to bear. As the years passed, the Book of Giants was relegated to the shadows, its story buried in the dust of history. Yet, even in its silence, the text continued to stir the hearts and minds of those who dared to dream of a world beyond the boundaries of the known. In the shadows, the knowledge continued to call out, waiting for the day when it would once again be brought into the light. But by then, the betrayals had already been set in motion. The text had been hidden, suppressed, and twisted to fit the needs of those in power. The question remains, why was this knowledge so dangerous? Why did so many betray their moral compass to keep it hidden? Was it fear of the unknown? Or was it a deeper, more sinister fear of the truth and the power it held? The Book of Giants had long been considered a mere myth, an obscure relic of forgotten history, passed down in whispers but dismissed as an exaggerated legend by most scholars. For centuries, its fragments had been scattered, hidden in remote caves and libraries, and often regarded as the product of overzealous imaginations. However, when these fragments of forbidden knowledge were brought to light in the 20th century, the world was forced to reconsider their significance. What had once been seen as a mere tale of Nephilim and Watchers was now undeniably real, a revelation capable of shaking the very core of human understanding. The first twist in this journey came when another significant discovery was made, one that would deepen the mystery surrounding the Book of Giants. In 1952, a team of archaeologists working near the Dead Sea uncovered an ancient scroll, mistakenly thought to be another copy of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. But as they examined it further, the scholars quickly realized that this scroll was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It contained strange, unfamiliar symbols and references to beings not seen in the Book of Giants fragments. While the text was connected to the Watchers, it suggested a different origin, a darker, more profound knowledge that hinted at powers beyond human comprehension. As the scroll was carefully deciphered, the scholars were stunned by the repeated phrase, "The children of the fallen will rise again." This cryptic and chilling message was scattered across the document, appearing in varying forms and contexts, but always invoking a sense of urgency. The phrase spoke of a future event, a time when the Nephilim would return to the world. Scholars were left in a state of unease. Was this a prophecy, a warning, or perhaps a message from a time before the flood, waiting to be rediscovered? Its implications were so significant that they could no longer be dismissed as mere superstition. The academic world was divided. Some were convinced that the Nephilim were merely ancient giants, beings of incredible strength brought into being through forbidden unions between the Watchers and humans. They believed that these giants had once roamed the earth and that they had been wiped out by a great flood. But with the discovery, the lines between myth and history began to blur. The question now shifted from what the Nephilim were to why they had come into existence in the first place. Was it possible that the Nephilim had never truly been defeated, but instead had been hidden away by powerful forces throughout history? Could it be that they had waited for the right moment to rise again? The implications were staggering. If this was true, humanity had unknowingly kept these secrets buried for millennia. These were not just the bones of giants, but of an ancient race that could change the future of the world. The discovery of this knowledge became not just an academic pursuit, it was a call to action for anyone who wished to unlock the mysteries of the Nephilim. Just as scholars began to grasp the full scope of this newfound revelation, another twist came to light, one that would deepen the mystery even further and throw the academic community into turmoil. One of the most respected researchers who had been studying the Book of Giants and its connected texts uncovered a vital clue, an ancient missing fragment of the Book of Giants that could hold the answers to everything. This fragment, thought to be lost forever, was said to contain a passage that would explain the true nature of the Watchers and their role in creating the Nephilim. The researcher, who had built a reputation on their meticulous work, was ready to reveal this groundbreaking discovery to the world. However, just days before the public unveiling, the researcher disappeared without a trace. No one knew where they had gone or why. There was no sign of foul play and no explanation for the vanishing. What happened to the researcher remains one of the most mysterious and chilling elements of the Book of Giants saga. In the aftermath, speculation began to circulate. Was the researcher silenced for uncovering too much? Had they discovered something so powerful, so earth-shattering, that it could never be allowed to be made public? Or was it possible that the researcher simply couldn't handle the gravity of the truth they had unearthed, vanishing into the unknown to escape the weight of what they had learned? This disappearance created a new layer of mystery around the Book of Giants. It wasn't just the knowledge that had been buried, it was the lengths to which people would go to keep it hidden. The researcher's vanishing act was a turning point in the investigation into the Nephilim and the Watchers. It forced those studying the fragments to ask themselves, what truths were so dangerous that they had to be buried? Could the Watchers, the very beings who had shared forbidden knowledge with humanity, be somehow involved in these disappearances? Had they played a role in shaping the fate of those who dared to uncover too much? As the world speculated, the questions surrounding the Nephilim and the Watchers only grew. What had the researcher discovered in the missing fragment? What were the stakes of revealing the truth? Had the Nephilim been mere giants, or was there something more? The disappearance of the researcher opened the door for a deeper, more unsettling examination of the ancient texts. If the fragment had been so important, then what did it reveal about the true nature of the Watchers and the Nephilim? Had this knowledge been hidden not just to protect the world from an ancient power, but to prevent a rise of forbidden knowledge that could change the course of history forever? The disappearance of the researcher raised even more questions than it answered. Scholars, researchers, and conspiracy theorists alike were drawn into the mystery, each with their interpretation of what had happened. Was it a simple case of coincidence, or was there a more sinister force at play? Were there powerful individuals or organizations actively working to keep the truth hidden? The discovery of the ancient texts, combined with the sudden vanishing of the researcher, had thrust the Book of Giants into the global spotlight. What had they uncovered that was so dangerous? As more fragments of the Book of Giants were studied, the revelations became even more unsettling. One of the most intriguing aspects of the text was the relationship between the Watchers and the ancient kings and rulers who sought their forbidden wisdom. The Watchers, according to these ancient writings, were not just alien beings or angels. They were powerful, otherworldly entities with knowledge that transcended human understanding. And it was their interaction with humanity that created the Nephilim, beings of immense strength and unnatural abilities. But as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, one fact became undeniable. The Watchers were not simply benefactors of humanity. They were, in fact, manipulators, playing a long game that spanned millennia. These Watchers had provided humanity with knowledge, but the consequences of that gift were devastating. They had shared forbidden secrets, knowledge of metallurgy, magic, and even the arts of warfare, transforming the trajectory of human civilization forever. These teachings, however, came with a price. The Nephilim, the offspring of these ancient beings, these half-angel, half-human giants, became the catalyst for massive societal upheavals in the ancient world. Their sheer size and strength were enough to challenge the gods themselves, but it wasn't just their physical power that made them so dangerous. It was the intellectual gifts they received from the Watchers. The Nephilim were not just warriors, but scholars and strategists who could shape civilizations with their wisdom and might. As the deeper truths of the Watchers were unveiled through these ancient texts, it became clear that their influence was not just a momentary blip in human history. Their teachings have shaped entire cultures, with their teachings on governance, law, and society still resonating through modern history. But it was their true goal, what they truly sought by guiding humanity, that made the Watchers so terrifying. The Nephilim, their progeny, was not just a powerful force of nature, they were the key to something even darker. The Watchers were attempting to create a world where they, not humanity, ruled supreme. The deeper scholars delved into the Book of Giants, the more they began to realize that the Nephilim were not merely the progeny of forbidden unions, they were part of a larger cosmic scheme. The Watchers had not just given knowledge to humanity, they had woven themselves into the very fabric of human history. Their influence could be traced back to the earliest civilizations, where their teachings shaped everything from the building of ancient monuments to the creation of secret societies. The implications were staggering. These ancient beings had been pulling the strings of human civilization from the shadows, guiding humanity toward a destiny that was not of their choosing. Their ultimate goal was to return, and this time humanity would no longer be in control. And then, as if to confirm their worst fears, a third twist came to light, an even darker revelation that tied everything together. One of the final missing fragments of the Book of Giants revealed that the Nephilim had not been destroyed by the flood, as was commonly believed. Instead, they had been hidden away, sealed beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to return. This revelation was not just a historical fact. It was a prophecy. The Nephilim were not a thing of the past. They were a force waiting to be unleashed. And according to the text, that moment was rapidly approaching. The fragment hinted that the Nephilim were tied to a secret ancient ritual, one that had been kept hidden by powerful groups throughout history. This ritual, when performed, would awaken the Nephilim and restore them to full power. The text was clear in its warning. When the blood of the fallen is spilled, the giants shall rise. The phrase echoed through the scrolls, growing louder as scholars realized the full extent of what they were reading. It was not just a call to arms, but a dire warning that the return of the Nephilim would bring chaos and destruction. The very nature of this revelation posed an existential threat, not just to the scholars studying the texts, but to the world at large. What would happen if this knowledge were to fall into the wrong hands? What if those seeking power, whether ancient cults or modern-day elites, used the Book of Giants to resurrect the Nephilim? Could humanity survive such a force? The terrifying realization dawned that the Nephilim were not just ancient giants. They were part of a cosmic struggle far beyond human comprehension, and the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. As the academic world scrambled to process the implications of the new fragments, whispers began to circulate about secret societies. Ancient groups who had long known about the Nephilim and their connection to the Watchers. These societies, some speculated, had been waiting for the return of the giants. They believed that the Nephilim were not only a key to unimaginable power, but also the ultimate solution to the problems of the modern world. According to these groups, the giants were the missing link, the final piece needed to bring humanity into a new era. But at what cost? Were these groups truly acting in humanity's best interest, or were they seeking to use the Nephilim to subjugate humanity for their gain? The power to control such beings was unimaginable. This revelation was not just a matter of historical importance, it was a matter of survival. The possibility that the Nephilim could be awakened by a ritual that had been hidden away for centuries filled the world with fear. Who could be trusted with such power? And what would happen if the Nephilim were to return? Would they be benevolent giants, or would they bring about the end of humanity? The answers to these questions could change the course of history forever. The more the scholars uncovered, the more they realized that the Book of Giants was not just a text from an ancient past, but a living document, a warning for the future. Every discovery they made opened up new layers of mystery and danger, and the lines between the known and the unknown began to blur. The truth, it seemed, was not just buried in the past. It was a shadow hanging over the future. As each fragment of knowledge fell into place, humanity found itself standing on the edge of an abyss, unsure of what lay beyond. What would happen if the secrets of the Nephilim were fully unlocked? Could humanity survive the chaos of their return, or would the world be plunged into an era of darkness and domination? The mystery surrounding the Book of Giants deepened further as it began to affect more than just the academic world. It began to take on a life of its own, drawing in powerful and influential figures who understood the true potential of the knowledge it contained. But as soon as these influential figures started to realize the power of the book, they found themselves divided. The Watchers, whose influence seemed to span both ancient and modern times, weren't merely subjects of history. They were active players in the present. Many of the elites who had come into contact with the book had known about the Watchers long before the public began to uncover their existence. But it wasn't just the discovery of the Book of Giants that caused an uproar. It was the knowledge that this book held the key to understanding their power and influence over humanity. And some were willing to go to extreme lengths to keep these secrets from surfacing. It wasn't long before the first betrayals began. Within months of the researchers' disappearance, whispers of a covert operation began circulating through powerful circles. The Book of Giants was no longer just a subject of academic fascination. It had become a weapon in the hands of those who could use it. Those who understood its potential recognized that the knowledge contained within could reshape the world, but they also realized that the wrong hands could bring about an apocalypse. So, as with any piece of forbidden knowledge, a struggle for control over it ensued. One of the first betrayals came when a key scholar, once an ally of the original research team, began working with a secretive global organization. This organization, shrouded in mystery, had existed for centuries, operating behind the scenes and pulling the strings of global affairs. They had long been aware of the Nephilim and the Watchers, and had spent years trying to locate the Book of Giants to further their ends. They believed that by harnessing the power of the Nephilim, they could control humanity's future, ensuring that they were the ones at the top of the food chain. In exchange for their cooperation, the scholar was promised unparalleled access to information, access that would allow them to publish their work and cement their place in academic history. It was a tempting offer, but it came with a dangerous catch. The scholar's newfound alliance required them to act as a gatekeeper, hiding crucial parts of the Book of Giants from the rest of the world. They were ordered to suppress the truth, to ensure that certain aspects of the text never saw the light of day. As the scholar became more deeply entangled in this covert world, they began to distance themselves from their former colleagues. The once close-knit team of researchers was now fractured, with alliances forming and dissolving in the shadows. The original team members, who had dedicated years to uncovering the secrets of the Book of Giants, began to distrust one another. One member, in particular, a historian with a strong moral compass, uncovered the betrayal. They had stumbled upon information that revealed the scholar's dealings with the secretive organization and their efforts to suppress key fragments of the Book of Giants. This historian confronted the scholar in a tense meeting, demanding answers. The scholar, however, was no longer the person they once knew. They had been corrupted by power, by the temptation to control the knowledge contained within the book. They denied the accusations, calling them paranoid delusions. But the historian had seen enough to know that the Book of Giants wasn't just a collection of ancient texts. It was a dangerous weapon. It held truths that, if revealed, could shatter the world's understanding of history and its place in the cosmos. And so, a moral dilemma unfolded. The historian was faced with a choice: expose the scholar and risk their safety, or protect them and let the Nephilim's secrets remain hidden. The historian understood that revealing the betrayal meant sacrificing not only their career, but also their safety and reputation. Yet, as they weighed the risks, they realized that the greater risk was in allowing the truth to remain hidden. They had learned too much, and the consequences of keeping the secret were far too grave. But the scholar's betrayal wasn't the only one. As the book's contents began to leak, it was revealed that there were others involved, other researchers and academics who had made secret pacts with powerful organizations. These organizations, both ancient and modern, were determined to control the narrative and suppress anything that might threaten their authority. The truth about the Watchers and the Nephilim was too dangerous for them to allow to spread, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that the world remained in ignorance. The betrayal continued to spiral as more individuals became ensnared in the web of secrecy and lies. One of these individuals was a prominent archaeologist, once a leading figure in the excavation of ancient texts. This archaeologist, who had long been respected in the academic community, found themselves at a crossroads when they uncovered a critical piece of the Book of Giants, a fragment containing a direct reference to the Nephilim. This discovery was earth-shattering, as it provided the first tangible evidence that the Nephilim were not just mythological beings, but rather had existed in some form in human history. However, the archaeologists' discovery was met with resistance from their colleagues. As they prepared to publish their findings, they were approached by an unknown group, offering an ultimatum: destroy the evidence and suppress the findings or face dire consequences. The archaeologist, who had dedicated their life to the pursuit of truth, was faced with an agonizing decision, torn between their oath to reveal the truth and the threat to their safety. The archaeologist reluctantly agreed to bury the discovery, choosing to protect their career and family over the pursuit of knowledge. As word spread of this new betrayal, the tensions among the remaining researchers grew even more intense. Some were disgusted by the actions of their peers and saw this as the beginning of a slippery slope. They realized that the Book of Giants was not just a piece of history. It was a ticking time bomb with the potential to unravel centuries of religious and historical dogma. The power held within the book was immense, and the choice to protect it or expose it became a personal battle for each of the researchers involved. One key member of the research team, a linguist who had been studying the ancient languages found in the Book of Giants, began to piece together more hidden fragments. This linguist uncovered what seemed to be a warning encoded within the text that pointed to a greater, more dangerous truth, one that could destabilize entire governments and religious institutions. It was clear that this warning was meant for those who sought to understand the power of the Nephilim. But as they decoded more of the message, the linguists realized that they were no longer just uncovering knowledge. They were awakening something far more dangerous. The linguists struggled with the implications of this discovery. They knew that to continue their work would put them in direct opposition to the very forces they had once trusted. The deeper they delved into the Book of Giants, the more they understood that this was not just a historical account. It was a warning from the past, a cry for help from those who had once been lost to the Watchers. As the linguists' discoveries grew more alarming, they shared their findings with a select group of trusted colleagues. But even within this small circle, fear began to mount. Was it too late to turn back? Was there any way to stop the cascade of betrayals that had already begun? The group realized that the Book of Giants was not simply a text. It was a map to something much more dangerous, an ancient power that had been buried for centuries, waiting for the right moment to resurface. But the betrayals didn't end with academia. The global organizations that had once operated in the shadows began to make their move. As the book's knowledge grew more public, the influential figures who had been quietly pulling strings started to take a more direct approach. These organizations had been working in secret for years, monitoring the activities of those who had come into contact with the Book of Giants. They knew that the book held secrets that could change the balance of power in the world, and they were willing to do whatever it took to seize control. It wasn't long before the Nephilim's power began to manifest in unexpected ways. Leaders of various secret societies, many of whom were descendants of those who had originally interacted with the Watchers, began to reveal their true intentions. The Book of Giants had become more than just an artifact of the past. It had become the key to unlocking a future in which those who controlled the knowledge could rule the world. The betrayals continued to spiral as these organizations infiltrated the research teams, turning allies into enemies and forcing each individual to question their motivations. The once unified mission to uncover the truth about the Nephilim had turned into a battleground, with each faction vying for control of the book's most powerful secrets. It was becoming clear that the Book of Giants was no longer just a scholarly pursuit. It had become a dangerous game of power and deception, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The question now was not just about the truth. It was about who would control the narrative, and whether anyone could stop the tide of betrayals that had been set into motion. As the shadow of betrayal continued to grow darker, the stakes became even higher. The more the Book of Giants revealed, the greater the danger that surrounded it. The secretive organizations and ancient societies that had initially stayed in the shadows began to emerge into the light, operating with a ruthlessness that terrified those involved. Their motivations were simple, yet terrifying. Control. It was not just the knowledge of the Nephilim that they sought, but the power that came with it. For centuries, the descendants of those who had interacted with the Watchers had kept their secrets hidden, knowing that the wrong revelations could lead to chaos. Now, with the Book of Giants in their hands, they saw an opportunity to shape the world in their image. They believed that the Nephilim were not just a historical anomaly, but a symbol of divine power, and they were determined to wield that power for themselves. One of the most powerful of these factions was a covert organization that had been tracing the lineage of the Watchers for centuries. This secret society, known only to a select few, had made it their mission to resurrect the ancient order that had once controlled the world through their connection with the Nephilim. They believed that by unlocking the full potential of the Book of Giants, they could bring about a new era of power, one in which they ruled from the shadows, manipulating events and leaders across the globe. This organization had a secret agenda. They sought to awaken the ancient Nephilim through the book, using its teachings and rituals to unlock the latent powers that had been sealed away for centuries. They believed that the Nephilim was the key to returning to a time when humanity was ruled by beings of superior strength and intellect. Their goal was not just control, but absolute dominion over the human race. The resurrection of the Nephilim was no longer a mere academic pursuit. It had become the focus of a terrifying global conspiracy. As these shadowy forces closed in on the Book of Giants, the research team that had originally uncovered it found themselves in a race against time. With each passing day, the betrayals grew more brazen, and the line between friend and foe blurred. The linguist, once the most dedicated to uncovering the truth, now found themselves trapped between their duty to reveal the book's secrets and the powerful forces threatening to silence them forever. The linguist made a fateful decision. They would not let the truth be buried. Despite the immense danger they faced, they took the risk of leaking the book's fragments to trusted journalists, hoping that the public's outcry would prevent the worst from happening. But even as they took this bold step, they knew that they had just sealed their fate. The organizations that sought the book would stop at nothing to silence anyone who stood in their way. In a desperate move, the linguist reached out to the historian who had uncovered the first signs of betrayal. They knew that the historian's moral compass would guide them to the right decision, but they were also aware of the risks involved. The historian had been silent for months, knowing that any move they made could attract unwanted attention. But as the pressure mounted and the truth about the Nephilim became too great to ignore, the historian made a critical choice. They would confront the conspirators head-on. The historian's investigation led them to a hidden archive, a place where the remnants of the Watchers had left their mark. Here, in the ruins of an ancient library, the historian uncovered more fragments of the Book of Giants, fragments that revealed a darker truth. The Nephilim were not mere giants, but were believed to be the offspring of fallen angels. They were beings of immense power, capable of shaping the world according to their will. The ancient texts describe the creation of the Nephilim in vivid detail, depicting their godlike abilities to manipulate the elements and control the minds of lesser beings. The historian realized that the Nephilim were not a mere relic of the past. They were the key to unlocking the ultimate power. This power, however, came at a great cost. The ancient texts warned that the resurrection of the Nephilim would unleash a force that could destroy the world as we know it. It was a force that could corrupt humanity and bring about the fall of civilization itself. The historian was faced with an impossible choice: share this revelation with the world, or keep it hidden, allowing the powerful organizations to continue their pursuit of the Nephilim's resurrection. The betrayal became more than just personal. It was a battle between good and evil, truth and lies. As the linguist, historian, and others involved in the research team realized, they were not merely fighting for knowledge, they were fighting for the very future of humanity. They knew that exposing the Nephilim's secrets would not only destroy the global order, but could also awaken forces that they were not prepared to face. Each new betrayal carried the weight of a moral dilemma that forced the characters to question their motivations. Were they truly fighting for the truth, or were they being manipulated by those who had more power and influence? As the pieces of the Book of Giants continued to fall into the wrong hands, the question remained, could anyone stop the impending catastrophe, or had the damage already been done? The deeper they delved into the Book of Giants, the more perilous the journey became. As the fragments of the ancient text came together, the puzzle they had been piecing together began to shift in terrifying ways. What had started as an intellectual pursuit of a forgotten history soon revealed itself as a far more dangerous game, one that would change the world forever. The first twist came when the linguist, after days of intense study, uncovered a passage that had been buried in the text for centuries. It was a cryptic message, one that seemed almost out of place in the historical context of the book. It spoke not of giants or gods, but of a prophecy, a warning. The words described the return of the Nephilim not as mere relics of the past, but as an event that could reshape the fabric of reality itself. The passage spoke of an alignment, a time when the stars would converge and the power of the Nephilim would be unleashed once more. What was more chilling was the implication that those who sought to resurrect the Nephilim would not simply gain power, they would become one with them, changing the course of history forever. This revelation sent shockwaves through the group of researchers. The original assumption had been that the Nephilim were a race of beings long since extinct, but this passage suggested that they were still a very real and present force, just waiting to be awakened. The question now became, could humanity survive the return of these ancient beings, or would they be consumed by their power? But as the researchers grappled with this discovery, they soon realized that the Book of Giants held more secrets than they had initially thought. It was not just a historical document, it was a map, a blueprint for how the Nephilim could be brought back. The text contained detailed rituals, symbols, and incantations, all designed to awaken the dormant powers of the Nephilim. These rituals were not mere words on a page. They were instructions, powerful and deadly. Whoever controlled the Book of Giants held the key to unlocking an ancient and unimaginable force. But with this newfound knowledge came a price. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the path became. The factions pursuing the book now knew that it was not just an artifact to be studied, it was a weapon. The historian, realizing the extent of the book's power, faced an impossible dilemma. If the book were to fall into the wrong hands, it could bring about the very destruction they had been trying to prevent. Yet hiding it would only delay the inevitable. The historian's investigation revealed a second twist, one that shook their understanding of the Nephilim even further. While most believed that the Nephilim were the offspring of fallen angels, the truth was far more complicated. The Nephilim were not merely the result of divine and human unions, but a fusion of celestial and terrestrial powers. The text revealed that they had been created as part of an ancient experiment, one that had been abandoned long ago by the very beings who had originally designed them. The historian uncovered that the Nephilim were not just beings of power, they were beings of corruption. They were designed to be perfect, but the experiment had gone awry. The result was a race of creatures whose very existence threatened the balance of the world. Their return, the text warned, could lead to chaos, as the power they wielded was beyond human comprehension. The more the historians uncovered, the more they realized that the Nephilim had never been meant to be unleashed again. The betrayal had not just been personal, it was cosmic. The organizations seeking to resurrect the Nephilim were not just after power for themselves. They were playing with forces they could barely understand, and the more they tried to control it, the more they risked unleashing a force that could tear the world apart. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the historian realized the full extent of the stakes. If the Nephilim were to be resurrected, it would not only change the course of history, it would erase the very foundation of human existence. The return of these ancient beings would mark the end of civilization as we know it. But with this knowledge came a new twist, one that would forever alter the fate of those involved. The historian discovered that the book's true power lay not in the rituals or the prophecies, but in the final hidden text, a passage that had been deliberately concealed by the ancient authors. This passage revealed the ultimate secret. The Nephilim could not be fully resurrected without the blood of one who had uncovered the truth. The revelation that the resurrection of the Nephilim required the blood of someone who had uncovered their truth sent a wave of panic through the group. The historians' pulse raced as they read the words over and over, trying to understand what it meant. It wasn't just a matter of finding the right ritual, it was a matter of survival. The book itself demanded a sacrifice, a final, irreversible act that would unleash the Nephilim once more. As the historian contemplated the meaning of this dark requirement, the full weight of their discoveries began to sink in. The Nephilim, once believed to be a forgotten myth, were now real, and their return was inevitable. There was no going back. The text made it clear. The world had already been set on a course toward destruction, and the only way to prevent it was to destroy the book before its power could be fully realized. The historians knew they had to act quickly, but who could they trust? Every ally had become a potential threat, each with their agendas. The factions pursuing the Book of Giants were no longer just seeking knowledge. They were willing to do anything to gain control over it. The historians' involvement with the book had made them a target, but they couldn't back out now. They were the only ones who knew the true power of the text, and that knowledge was both a gift and a curse. At the same time, the linguist, who had first uncovered the passage about the prophecy, began to experience strange visions. They could no longer sleep without being haunted by dreams of giants, massive, otherworldly figures rising from the earth, their eyes burning with an ancient fire. The linguist could feel their presence in the air, as if they were being called to something greater, something beyond the mortal realm. The lines between dream and reality blurred, and the knowledge of the Nephilim began to consume them. It was in the midst of this growing madness that the final twist revealed itself. The linguist had unknowingly become part of the prophecy. Their blood was the key to unlocking the Nephilim. The Book of Giants had chosen them. The words they had translated, the knowledge they had uncovered, it had all been leading to this moment. The linguist was not just an innocent scholar. They were the catalyst for the return of the Nephilim. The historian, realizing that the linguist was now entangled in the very prophecy they had been trying to prevent, was faced with an impossible choice. To stop the resurrection, they would need to stop the linguist, perhaps even sacrifice them. But the historian had come to know the linguist as a friend, as someone who had shared in the pursuit of knowledge, someone who had been their closest ally. Could they betray them to save humanity? Or was there another way? The urgency of the situation grew by the day. The factions seeking the Book of Giants were closing in, and their influence spread like a shadow over the research team. As the linguist's visions grew more intense, the historian knew that the time was running out. If they didn't act soon, it might be too late to stop the return of the Nephilim. Meanwhile, the factions were moving quickly to seize control of the book. The secret society that had been tracking the Nephilim's resurrection for centuries was making its move. They had anticipated that the Book of Giants held the key to unlocking the ancient power, and they were prepared to do anything to get their hands on it. They were well-funded, well-connected, and ruthless. They had agents placed everywhere, watching every move the researchers made. But there was a complication. The historian had uncovered a final cryptic clue hidden in the book, a clue that suggested the Nephilim could not be fully awakened without the presence of a specific alignment of stars. This alignment, once thought to be a mere myth, was now drawing closer. In a matter of weeks, the prophecy would come to fruition, and the ancient power of the Nephilim would be unlocked unless the book was destroyed. As the pieces of the puzzle continued to fall into place, the historian realized that the key to stopping the resurrection might lie in the book itself. But the book was more than just a text. It was a living entity, bound by blood, steeped in ancient magic. Every moment they spent with it seemed to draw them deeper into its grip, pulling them toward an inevitable conclusion. The stakes had never been higher. The Nephilim were no longer just a myth. They were real, and their return could bring about the end of the world. But the historian couldn't do it alone. They needed the linguist's help, but the linguist was now a part of the prophecy. Could they find a way to stop the return of the Nephilim without sacrificing the linguist? Or would the prophecy unfold as written, with humanity powerless to stop the awakening of the ancient giants? The twists were stacking up, each more dangerous than the last. With time running out, the historian knew that the final battle for the Book of Giants was about to begin. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the only question left was whether they could find a way to break the cycle before it was too late. The weight of the situation had never been so heavy. The walls of the small research facility seemed to close in around the historian as they paced back and forth, trying to figure out what to do. The Nephilim were not just returning, they were awakening. The linguist, who had once been an ally, was now irrevocably tied to the prophecy, and the final piece of the puzzle had slipped into place. The world was on the brink of being reshaped. With each passing day, the stars in the sky grew closer to the foretold alignment. The tension was unbearable. Every part of the book that the historian had studied now felt like a ticking clock, its pages turning faster with every second. The final ritual was nearing, and the Nephilim's return could no longer be stopped. Yet, the ultimate betrayal still loomed, the one the historian would have to make to save humanity. As the historian watched the linguist's gradual descent into madness, a pang of sorrow pierced their heart. Once, the linguist had been their closest friend, someone they could rely on. Together, they had uncovered the secrets of the Book of Giants. But now, the linguist was no longer the person they had known. The dreams, the visions, the hallucinations, they were all signs that the linguist was no longer in control. The text had claimed them. The historian had tried to help. They had offered comfort, protection, and even a way out, but it was clear now there was no escaping the prophecy. The linguist's connection to the Nephilim was inescapable. The final steps of the ritual required the blood of someone who had uncovered the truth. And now, the linguist was that person. But the linguist was not alone in their madness. The factions, once covert and secretive, were now moving into position. They were close, too close. The historian knew that if the book was not destroyed, the Nephilim would be fully resurrected, and nothing could stop the apocalypse that would follow. But what was the cost of stopping it? The linguist had already become a key part of the ritual. To destroy the Book of Giants was to destroy the linguist, to betray the very person who had once stood by their side. The historian stood at the precipice of a moral abyss. Could they go through with it? Could they sacrifice the linguist, knowing that their friend would never forgive them? Or could they find another way, some way to stop the Nephilim's resurrection without losing everything? The emotional toll of these questions weighed heavily on the historian. Their mind raced, searching for a solution, but each possibility led to more pain. There was no way to win, no way to walk away unscathed. The prophecy had already set everything in motion, and the stars were aligning. The Nephilim were coming, and there was no avoiding the reckoning that was about to unfold. But even as the historian considered their choices, the linguist's behavior became more erratic. They were no longer fully present in the world around them, lost in visions of the Nephilim, hearing whispers that only they could understand. Their body trembled with a strange energy, their eyes wide with an unnatural fire. They had been chosen by the book, and there was no turning back for them. The historian's heart broke as they realized the truth. Their friend was no longer their friend. The linguist had become something else, an instrument of destruction, a harbinger of the Nephilim's return. The historians had known that the book was dangerous, but they had never fully understood the cost of uncovering its secrets. As the stars moved closer to their fated alignment, the historian was faced with a terrifying choice: to act and potentially destroy their friend in the process, or to stand by and watch the world descend into chaos. Each second felt like an eternity. The tension was unbearable, the weight of the decision pressing down with an almost physical force. Finally, the moment arrived. The sky darkened and a strange silence filled the air. The Nephilim were about to awaken. There was no more time for contemplation, no more time for second chances. The historians knew what they had to do. With trembling hands, the historian approached the linguist. The room seemed to close in around them, the weight of the world bearing down on their shoulders. The linguist's eyes were wild, their lips murmuring in an ancient language, words that no mortal should have ever spoken. The historian placed a hand on their shoulder, feeling the pulse of the ritual begins to surge through the air. And then the final choice was made. The historian's heart raced as the final moment of truth loomed before them. The air in the room felt thick with anticipation, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The linguist, lost in their mind, appeared to be a mere shadow of the person they had once been. Their eyes, once filled with passion for discovery, now glowed with a feverish intensity that spoke of something far darker. The voices they heard in their head seemed to grow louder, the whispers of the Nephilim urging them forward, urging them to complete the ritual. The historian, feeling the burden of the world's fate pressing upon them, struggled to keep their composure. They knew what they had to do, but the emotional cost was unbearable. The thought of destroying the linguist, of ending their life to stop the prophecy from unfolding, was a wound the historian could not even begin to fathom. They had spent so many months, years even, working side by side with the linguist, uncovering the secrets of the Book of Giants. They had shared their fears, their hopes, their dreams, and now that very person had become the key to unleashing the greatest catastrophe the world would ever know. "Please," the linguist whispered, their voice trembling with a mixture of fear and devotion. "I can't stop it. They're coming. I can feel them. The giants. They're waking up." The historian's stomach twisted in agony. The linguist was no longer speaking of the research, of the texts. They were speaking of the Nephilim, the ancient giants who had been locked away for millennia. They were the ones who had once roamed the earth, giants of unimaginable power who had been wiped out by the forces of nature and the gods themselves. Now they were returning, and the linguist's involvement in the prophecy had made them an integral part of this dark resurrection. "I know," the historian whispered, barely able to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. "But we can stop this. We can still stop it." The linguist's eyes flickered toward the historian, but they didn't seem to truly see them. They were lost in their world, their mind consumed by the ancient power that now surged within them. It was clear to the historian that the linguist was no longer in control of their fate. The book had done its work, and now the prophecy was set in motion. The Nephilim could not be stopped, not by anyone. The historian's hand trembled as they reached for the artifact, a small, intricately carved dagger that had been passed down through generations, said to be able to sever the ties between the realms of the living and the dead. It was the one tool that could destroy the book and stop the ritual from completing. but using it would require a sacrifice the historian had never imagined they would be asked to make. With every step they took toward the linguist, the historian's resolve wavered. The emotions they had been bottling up for so long threatened to break free. The face of their friend, once so full of promise, so eager to uncover the secrets of the past, now seemed alien, consumed by a darkness that was beyond human comprehension. Could they go through with it? Could they take the life of someone they cared about so deeply, knowing that it would be the only way to prevent the Nephilim from awakening? A part of the historian wanted to turn away, to leave the linguist and the cursed book behind. But they knew that wasn't an option. The fate of the world rested on their shoulders. If they failed, the Nephilim would return, bringing with them an age of destruction and chaos the world would never recover from. The historian's hand closed around the dagger's hilt, and for the first time in their life, they truly understood the meaning of sacrifice. The weight of the decision pressed upon them like an anchor, threatening to pull them under. But they knew there was no other choice. If they didn't act now, everything they had worked for, everything they had fought for, would be lost. The linguist's voice rose again, this time stronger, as if they were calling to something beyond the mortal realm. "They are coming," they repeated, their eyes now filled with a strange, unholy light. "The giants, the Nephilim. They will destroy everything. You can't stop them. It's too late." The historian took a step closer, the dagger now gleaming in their hand. "I'm sorry," they whispered, barely able to get the words out. "But this is the only way." With a swift motion, the historian drove the dagger into the linguist's chest, ending their life before they could speak another word. The room was filled with a sudden silence, a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to hang in the air, thick and suffocating. For a moment, the historian stood there, unable to move, as the weight of their decision hit them all at once. They had just killed their closest friend, the person they had trusted with their life's work, and they had done it to prevent a catastrophe they could no longer stop. But even as the linguist's body fell to the ground, the historian knew they had made the right choice. The Nephilim were powerful, but they were not invincible. The book, the key to their resurrection, was now destroyed. The ritual had been stopped. The ancient giants would not rise again. Yet as the historian stood over the lifeless body of their friend, they couldn't shake the feeling that the cost of stopping the Nephilim was far greater than they had ever imagined. The world might have been saved, but the emotional toll of the decision would haunt them for the rest of their life. The stars outside began to fade as the alignment passed, and the Nephilim's power dissipated into the ether. But for the historian, the victory felt hollow. They had saved the world, but at what cost? As the historian stood over the lifeless body of their once beloved colleague, the weight of their action seemed to press down on them, more suffocating than the dark prophecy that had threatened the world. They had ended a life, yes, to protect countless others, but the act itself felt like an unshakable shadow on their soul. The guilt, the sorrow, and the emptiness left behind by their decision churned within them, leaving them almost as hollow as the room where the final ritual had unfolded. The silence that followed was profound. There were no sounds of triumph, no victorious cheers. The Nephilim were gone. The ritual was broken. The world would go on. Yet at that moment, the historian could not shake the lingering sense that the true cost of the battle was not just the loss of their friend, but something deeper, something intangible that they would never be able to reclaim. They slowly dropped to their knees beside the linguist's body, their hand trembling as it hovered over the fallen friend's chest. The once lively individual, whose spirit had been so filled with wonder and drive, now lay in front of them, a mere shell. The historian's breath came in shallow bursts as they silently begged for forgiveness, though they knew it was an impossible request. Could anyone forgive such an act? Was there even a way to forgive themselves? Why did it have to be you? The historian whispered, their voice breaking under the weight of the question. Why couldn't it have been me? But the answer, they knew, could not be found in the darkness of that room. It had to come from within themselves. They had made the choice, and now they had to live with it. The historian looked at the book, the one that had led them to this point, the Book of Giants. Its once feared power was now a quiet memory, fading into the pages of history. They had seen its secrets, unlocked its mysteries, and learned its truths, but was the knowledge worth the cost? What had they truly gained by stopping the rise of the giants? The historian's mind reeled, questions flooding their thoughts like a torrent. The power to change the course of history, to save humanity from destruction, had come with a price that they would carry for the rest of their days. As the historians stood up, their body felt heavy, as though the weight of their choice had become a physical presence. They walked toward the window, looking out at the dark sky, the stars fading as if retreating from the horrors that had just transpired. The storm had passed, and the danger had been averted, but the emotional storm inside the historian raged on. They could hear the whispers in their mind, not of the Nephilim this time, but of their conscience, questioning the righteousness of their actions. Did I do the right thing, they asked themselves, or was this the end of something far greater than I understood? The answer was not clear. It never would be. But one thing was certain, the world had been saved, but at a cost no one could truly fathom. The giants, the Nephilim, would never rise again. But in their place, something else had emerged, a deep, unhealing wound within the historians themselves. As the historian stepped away from the window, they realized that the darkness of the room had not lifted. It had not disappeared. It had seeped into their soul, a permanent stain, a scar that could never be undone. They had done what was necessary. They had stopped the ancient giants. But they had also lost a friend, and no matter how much the world might thank them for their bravery, the historian would never escape the shadow of their decision. The Nephilim were gone, but their legacy, their power, their weight remained. The historian closed the book one final time, its pages heavy with the history they had uncovered and the burden they had borne. The world outside had no idea what had transpired here at this moment. They would continue to live their lives, blissfully unaware of the sacrifices made in the name of their protection. And the historian would carry that knowledge alone. As they turned away, walking through the dark corridors of the ancient library, the historian realized that perhaps this was the true cost of forbidden knowledge. Not just the truths that could topple civilizations, but the personal cost, the emotional toll of carrying the weight of such knowledge in a world that would never truly understand. The historian, a figure now etched in history as both a savior and a tragic figure, knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Nephilim were gone, but their legacy lived on, in the hearts of those who would never know the truth, and in the soul of the one who had paid the highest price. The story of the Book of Giants is not merely one of ancient knowledge, secret betrayals, and catastrophic truths. It is a story that resonates through the corridors of time, echoing lessons that transcend the age-old struggle between good and evil. As we look back on the events that led to the unraveling of the giants and the moral complexities faced by the historian, it becomes clear that the true lesson is not just about what was learned, but about the cost of knowing too much. What does it mean to possess forbidden knowledge? What price do we pay for secrets that are hidden for a reason? The historian, who stood at the crossroads of ancient prophecies and modern understanding, was confronted with a dilemma that challenges us all. How much are we willing to sacrifice for the sake of truth? The Book of Giants was not just a relic of the past, a forgotten scripture that spoke of beings greater than mortals. It was a key to a deeper understanding of human nature, of power, and of moral responsibility. and as the historians uncovered its pages, they soon realized that some truths were better left buried. To uncover the secrets of the giants was to bring forth a darkness that could not be easily contained. In many ways, the tale of the Nephilim mirrors the age-old myth of Pandora's box. What happens when we seek knowledge that was never meant to be found? We may uncover marvels that expand our understanding of the world, but we also open doors to forces that we cannot control. The Nephilim, as the historian discovered, were not just beings of unimaginable strength and size. They represented the dangers of unchecked power, the hubris of attempting to control what nature had hidden away. The Book of Giants was not merely a historical document, it was a warning, a blueprint for the destruction that only those with the will to understand could truly comprehend. When the historian made the fateful choice to end their colleague's life to prevent the rise of the giants, it was a moment of moral reckoning. The historian had to face the crushing weight of their decision, understanding that the line between good and evil is often not drawn in stark contrast, but in shades of grey. The power to decide who would live and who would die, to wield the knowledge of the ancients and the weight of their consequences, was not a privilege. It was a burden. And this brings us to the first important lesson. The burden of knowledge is often heavier than the weight of ignorance. When we choose to look into the abyss of forbidden truths, we must be prepared for the consequences. Knowledge, after all, is not just power. It is a responsibility, and with great power comes great accountability. The historian learned this truth the hard way, not only in the physical sacrifice of their colleague, but also in the spiritual and emotional cost that accompanied their choice. For every secret uncovered, there is a price to pay. And sometimes, the price is our very humanity. This moral dilemma, the choice to protect the world by sacrificing one individual, is a theme that runs through countless stories of moral complexity. History is replete with examples of individuals who have had to make impossible decisions in the face of greater threats. Whether in times of war, political conflict, or personal tragedy, the line between right and wrong becomes blurred when the stakes are as high as they were in the Book of Giants. But the true reflection comes not from the act itself, but from the aftermath. The historian's journey through the aftermath of their decision was as much about self-forgiveness as it was about saving the world. The emotional and psychological toll that followed, grappling with guilt, remorse, and the burden of knowing the truth, shows us that sometimes the hardest part of making a sacrifice is learning how to live with it afterward. The historian may have saved the world from the rise of the Nephilim, but they were left to live with the knowledge that they had taken a life to do so. How does one reconcile such a heavy cost? This is where the second crucial lesson lies. True redemption does not come from the act itself, but from the way we choose to live with the consequences. In the case of the historian, their journey was far from over. While they had saved humanity, they had also condemned themselves to a life of emotional turmoil. Their sacrifice was not rewarded with immediate peace or understanding, but with the continual struggle to find a sense of closure. It is in this struggle, this wrestling with the consequences, that true growth occurs. There is a philosophical truth in this narrative that we cannot ignore. Life is full of moral gray areas, and there are no easy answers. The historian's journey was not about finding a simple solution to a complex problem. It was about learning to navigate the uncertainty, to confront their choices, and to live with the painful reality that some truths cannot be unlearned. The Book of Giants presented the historian with a choice that was in many ways impossible, but in facing that impossible choice, the historian grew, learning that sometimes the greatest test of character lies not in what we choose, but in how we endure the consequences of those choices. The story of the Nephilim also teaches us about the nature of power and the responsibility that comes with it. The giants, in their physical form, represented a raw and untamable force, something that could easily tip the scales of power in any direction. But the historian realized that power, no matter how great, must be tempered by wisdom. To wield power without understanding its consequences is to invite chaos. The historian's understanding of the Nephilim was not just intellectual, it was deeply spiritual. They recognized that the giants were not simply a physical threat. They were a symbol of the dangers of unchecked power, the consequences of human hubris. This brings us to the final lesson. Knowledge and power, when combined with wisdom, can be a force for good. But without wisdom, they are a double-edged sword. The historian's decision to prevent the giants' rise was not just about stopping a physical threat, it was about understanding the larger philosophical implications of power. They knew that some powers were too great for humanity to wield, and that it was better to leave certain knowledge untouched. Sometimes, to protect the future, we must let go of the past. Perhaps the true lesson of the Book of Giants is not about the knowledge it contains, but about the wisdom to recognize when that knowledge should remain hidden. The historian, in their emotional turmoil and moral reckoning, came to understand that some truths are meant to remain buried. The cost of uncovering them is too great, the consequences too far-reaching. As we reflect on this story, it becomes clear that the Book of Giants was not just a tale of ancient beings and forbidden knowledge. It was a story about the dangers of seeking power without understanding the responsibility that comes with it. It was about the difficult choices we must make in the face of overwhelming circumstances and the emotional toll those choices can have on us. It was a lesson about the burden of knowledge, the cost of truth, and the moral dilemmas that we all face in our own lives. The historian's journey is our journey. It is the journey of confronting our limits, understanding our place in the world, and coming to terms with the consequences of our actions. And as we move forward in our own lives, perhaps the greatest lesson we can take from this story is that the search for truth is not always about what we uncover, but about what we are willing to sacrifice to protect the future. As we come to the end of this journey through the secrets of the Book of Giants, we are left with more than just the knowledge of a forgotten past. We've explored betrayal, moral dilemmas, and the eternal struggle between seeking truth and protecting the world from its consequences. But the story doesn't end here, because the questions it raises are not bound by time. They remain with us, challenging us to reflect on the choices we make, the knowledge we pursue, and the responsibilities we carry. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't what was hidden, but why it calls to us now. Why, after thousands of years, are we still drawn to uncover the forbidden? What is it about hidden truths that stirs something deep within us? The Book of Giants was not just an ancient text, it was a mirror reflecting the darker sides of human nature, our thirst for power, and the consequences of that thirst. But in its story, there is also a lesson of redemption, the recognition that even in the face of great sacrifice, we can choose to change, to grow, and to learn from our mistakes. We've walked alongside the historian, felt their struggle, and understood the weight of their decisions. And in doing so, we've been reminded that knowledge, especially forbidden knowledge, comes with great responsibility. The search for truth is a noble pursuit, but it must be tempered with wisdom. We've seen the devastating effects of unchecked power, but also the profound impact that comes with choosing the path of wisdom and self-reflection. Now, as we close the chapter on this ancient tale, the question remains: what will you do with the knowledge you've gained? The story of the Book of Giants is not just a piece of ancient history, it's a reflection of the choices we face in our own lives. Will we pursue knowledge at any cost, or will we learn to understand the deeper truths that govern the balance between power and responsibility? What would you have done if faced with the same moral dilemmas as the historian? Would you have uncovered the truth, no matter the cost? Or would you have chosen the path of silence and protection? These questions don't just belong to the past, they belong to us, here and now. Every day, we are confronted with choices that shape the world around us. The Book of Giants may have been buried, but its lessons are as relevant today as they were in the past. If this story has sparked something in you, if you felt the weight of the historian's decisions and the consequences of knowledge, then consider this. The journey doesn't end with the closing of this chapter. It continues with you. The search for truth, the struggle to balance power with wisdom, and the moral challenges we face are ongoing. The Book of Giants is not the end of the story, it is the beginning. If you've enjoyed uncovering these hidden truths and exploring the ancient mysteries with us, don't stop here. There's so much more to discover, and the journey is just beginning. Join us as we continue to explore the forgotten corners of history, seeking out the stories that have been lost or hidden from view. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel to dive deeper into these ancient secrets. And together, we can continue this quest for knowledge, truth, and understanding. So, what will you do now that you know? The next chapter is yours to write. What truths will you uncover, and what secrets will you leave buried? If this journey through hidden truths and forgotten histories has sparked your curiosity, don't let it end here. The mysteries of the Book of Giants are just one of many stories waiting to be uncovered. Join us as we continue to delve into the ancient, the mysterious, and the forbidden. By subscribing to our channel, you're not just following a page. You're becoming part of a community dedicated to exploring the unknown. We've only just scratched the surface, and there's so much more to discover. Together, we can continue to unveil the stories that have been lost to time, digging deeper into the past and finding connections to our present. So, if you want to keep searching, questioning, and discovering with us, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with fellow explorers and help spread the word. Let's keep this journey going, because the story doesn't end with the Book of Giants. The real adventure is just beginning. What will you uncover next? Subscribe and find out.